Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter, who was behind him, arrived and went into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the burial cloth that had been around Jesus' head. The cloth was folded up by itself, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to their homes, but Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but did not realize that it was Jesus. "Woman," he said, "why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet returned to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am returning to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news. "I have seen the Lord," she said, and she told them that he had said these things to her.
I invite you to pause and ponder and savor this story. Mary goes to the tomb early in the morning and discovers that the stone has been rolled away from the entrance to the tomb. She runs to tell Peter and John. They run to go and see for themselves. Peter, John, and Mary linger inside and around the tomb, pondering the empty tomb and its meaning. Peter and John go back home. Mary stands just outside the tomb and begins to weep. While she is weeping, Mary looks again into the tomb. She sees two angels sitting where Jesus had been. Did they just appear now? Or in the haste of running and catching their breath, had she and the other disciples simply failed to see them? Or perhaps angels can be seen more clearly through our tears. The tears are what the angels noticed first. "Woman, why are you weeping?" Mary probably felt it should be obvious, but she answers anyway, and then turns and sees a man standing just outside the tomb. The first thing he notices are her tears. And he asks her the same question, "Mary, why are you weeping?" Mary's answer to both the angels and the supposed gardener reveal the reason. It's Easter morning. And Easter morning is not the time for tears. The angels know that. The risen Jesus knows that, but Mary doesn't know that yet. Mary is weeping because Mary's still living in Friday and Saturday. The empty tomb for Mary up to this point in the story means the body of Jesus has been stolen. And so Mary answers the angels and Jesus, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." Resurrection is not a truth that Mary can imagine, let alone grasp. She's still under the shroud of death. And that is her only frame of reference. Someone relocating a dead body, that is the only possibility she can even imagine or conclude. Until the moment Jesus speaks her name, Mary. Hearing her name spoken in the familiar voice of Jesus opens for Mary a new possibility and reveals a life-changing truth. By the end of the story, Mary can proclaim to the other disciples, I have seen the Lord. By the end of the story, Mary has moved from a death reigning Friday to an Easter resurrection, Jesus reigning Sunday morning. And it's the questions, and it's the presence of the risen Christ speaking her name that helps to get Mary there. The angels and Jesus do not ask the why are you weeping question to guilt or judge or shame Mary. They want to help to move Mary to the truth of Easter resurrection, to the truth that death does not and never will have the last word. Because of resurrection, Jesus reigns over pain and over death and over sin and over everything that takes life away. Because of resurrection, new life and new possibility is all around us. One of the most important truths of Easter morning is that when Jesus rose from the dead, he rose as the beginning of the new world that God had always intended to make. The world that the prophet Isaiah spoke about, the new world where feasts of rich food and well-aged wines are all around us, a world where the shroud of death that is cast over all peoples will be cast aside, the world where God will wipe away tears from all faces, the world where God will take away insults and the mockery that his people have endured. In the resurrection, the power that controlled the old creation has been broken, has been defeated, and has been overthrown. As the songwriter reminded us this morning, death was arrested and now life begins. In the resurrection, God's kingdom is now launched in power and in glory on earth as in heaven. Through the resurrection of Jesus, we are set free from all that holds us captive. Through the resurrection, we are forgiven and we are free to live in the new way, free to live in the new kingdom life of God. Remember the title Pilate put above Jesus on the cross? Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Some of the religious leaders didn't like that title. They said, that's not true. It's only what Jesus says is true. But Pilate says, I'm leaving it there. And the resurrection proves it's true. Jesus is King. And Jesus reigns above it all. In the new creation world that begins at Easter, relationships are transformed and we are reminded who we ultimately are. Notice the last words of Jesus to Mary in this story. But go to my brothers, Mary, and say to them, I'm ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God. In this new world, we can know God the way Jesus knew God. We can be an intimate child of the Father. Easter resurrection affirms that we are a child of God, that we are a child of love, that we are known by name as Mary was. Mary, why are you weeping? A new world has begun. The shroud of death that consumed Friday and Saturday has been removed. Sunday, Easter morning, resurrection has come. New life is possible. This is the day when an impossible stone is rolled out of place. This is the day when the lost is found. This is the day when the story continues beyond death. When Mary came to realize that truth, She went to share the good news. I have seen the Lord, she told the disciples. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. That has been the proclamation of the church through all the centuries since that first Easter morning. And that truth is still true. God launched the new world through the resurrection of Jesus. It's here right now. It has begun. But the truth is, it's still to come in all its fullness. We are resurrection people who live in the reality of it's already true, but it's not fully here. The fullness of Sunday is still to come. But that first Easter Sunday reminds us that it's here and it's coming in all its fullness. So we need to savor resurrection truth right now. We need to savor that truth even as death and lockdown restrictions breathe down our necks. We need to savor that truth when the future feels precarious. We need to savor that truth even when loved ones continue to get sick and die. We need to savor that truth even when life gets overwhelming. We need to savor that truth even when our worst fears run wild. The craziness of life still happens because in our lives, sometimes it's still Friday and Saturday. We still have days when, like Mary, we weep because of all the pain and chaos around us. Thursday evening, I wept. It felt like all the chaos of the last year kind of caved in. And then that letter I had to write on Thursday, where I said, we're not going to meet Sunday morning. We're going to hold off. It all felt like too much in that moment. And I wept. Because the truth is, it feels like Friday some days. But the truth of resurrection is that Sunday is coming. So I invite us today to receive the good news of resurrection, to hold it and to savor it and to ponder it as closely as you can in this moment. It's trustworthy. And if you can't receive it and believe it fully today, the truth is, like Mary, someday you will. It will wait for you, and it will still be true. And when we weep, Jesus will stand near to us and will gently ask us, why are you weeping? All that has been so cruelly taken away will be restored. Christ is risen. The grave is empty. Love is eternal. Hope will overcome fear because death has been arrested. Death has been defeated. Nothing in the end will be lost. Easter reminds us that the impossible stones of our lives can be moved. Easter reminds us that the lost can be found. And Easter reminds us that our stories continue beyond death. It may still feel like Friday some days, but Sundays are coming because Jesus reigns. He reigns above it all.